You are too ordinary for my new billionaire life. You have 1 hour to pack and leave.
What would you do if your husband walked through the door, threw champagne in your face, and told you that you weren't good enough for his new level anymore? What would you do if the man you'd been married to for 10 years looked you dead in the eye and said you had 1 hour to pack your bags and leave your own home? Can you imagine that humiliation? Standing in your own living room, champagne dripping down your face, being told you don't belong there anymore, that you're too plain, too boring, too ordinary for his new billionaire lifestyle. Now imagine this. What if the 200 billion naira deal he just signed, the one that made him feel like a king, the one that made him think he could throw you away like garbage, what if you approved it? What if the mystery consultant everyone feared, the one whose signature determined whether deals lived or died, was you? And what if you were about to remind him that you don't bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand has been holding you up for a decade? If you've ever been called just a housewife, if you've ever been dismissed like your brain didn't matter because you chose to stay home, stay with me, because this woman didn't just get revenge, she dismantled him with a pen, a signature, and the truth he was too arrogant to see. This is the story of Chinwe Okafor, and trust me, you won't see this ending coming. Lagos, Ikoyi, Thursday night, 9:47 p.m. The penthouse was quiet, tastefully decorated, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos skyline, the kind of place that screamed wealth without shouting. Chinwe Okafor sat on the cream-colored couch, legs tucked under her, reading a book on emerging African markets. She wore jeans and an old knitted sweater, the same one she'd had since her master's program at Harvard 15 years ago. Her shoulder-length dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, no jewelry, except for her wedding ring. She looked comfortable, at peace, like a woman who'd found contentment in the quiet moments of life. A cup of tea sat cooling on the side table. She had no idea her entire world was about to explode. The front door burst open. Chinwe looked up, startled. "Chidi?" Her husband stormed in, phone pressed to his ear, laughing loudly. He was wearing a custom-tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than some people's cars. His Patek Philippe watch, 45 million naira, caught the light as he gestured wildly. "Yeah, Jerry, I told you I'd close it. 200 billion naira. They signed today. I'm untouchable now, man. Untouchable." He was practically screaming. His voice echoed through the penthouse like he wanted the entire building to hear it. Chinwe set her book down carefully. "Chidi, what's going on?" He didn't acknowledge her. He walked straight to the bar, grabbed a bottle of Moet and champagne, 800,000 naira worth of champagne, and popped the cork with unnecessary force. Champagne sprayed across the marble floor in an arc. "Chidi, please." He finally looked at her, really looked at her, and his expression made her blood run cold. It wasn't love, it wasn't even familiarity, it was disgust mixed with something worse, pity. "What's going on?" He laughed, pouring champagne into 2 crystal glasses. "I'll tell you what's going on, Chinwe. I just became a legend." He downed the first glass in one gulp and immediately poured another. "Apex Capital signed the merger today. 200 billion naira. Do you understand what that means? My company is about to go stratospheric. This isn't some little promotion. This is legacy money. This is private island, super yacht, front page of Business Day money." Chinwe stood up slowly, a knot forming in her stomach. "Chidi, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of—" "Save it." He cut her off with a wave of his hand. She blinked. "What?" "Save it," he repeated, his voice harder now. "You don't even understand what this means. This isn't about being proud. This is about power. This is about being in rooms with people who matter." Chinwe felt something shift in the air, something dangerous. "Chidi, I don't understand." "No." He walked towards her slowly, champagne glass in hand, eyes scanning her up and down like he was seeing her for the first time. "No, you don't understand, and that's the problem." He stopped 3 feet away from her. "Look at you," he said quietly, but the quiet was worse than shouting. "What?" Chinwe's voice was barely a whisper. "Look at you," he repeated louder now, gesturing with his glass. "You're wearing a 15-year-old sweater and mom jeans. Your hair's in a ponytail. You look like you're about to bake chin-chin for a church meeting." The words hit her like a slap. "Chidi, what are you saying?" He took another sip of champagne, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm saying that I'm about to be in rooms with billionaires, Chinwe. I'm going to be at state dinners, global summits, investor galas, and I need a wife who looks the part." Chinwe's chest tightened. "I can get dressed up. I can—" "It's not about getting dressed up," his voice rose sharply. "It's about who you are. You're a Toyota Camry, Chinwe, and I need a Range Rover." The comparison hung in the air like poison. Chidi, we've been married for 10 years. Exactly. He drained his glass and set it down hard on the marble counter. 10 years. And what have you done in those 10 years? You've been a housewife. You don't work, you don't have a career, you don't even have hobbies. You read books and drink tea. That's it. That's your life. I stayed home because you asked me to. Chinwe's voice cracked. You said you needed me to support you while you built the company. And I appreciate that. His tone dripped with condescension, like he was explaining basic math to a child. I really do, but I don't need that anymore. I need someone who can stand next to me at these events and not look plain. The word landed like a knife between her ribs. Plain? She whispered, her eyes beginning to sting. Yeah, plain. Chidi shrugged like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You're boring, Chinwe. You always have been. You're smart, I guess, in that quiet, nerdy way, but you're not exciting. You're not ambitious. You're not the kind of woman who turns heads when she walks into a room. You're just there. Chinwe opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mind was reeling. This can't be happening. This can't be real. I need someone who can keep up with me. Chidi continued, pacing now like he was making a business pitch. Someone who understands the level I'm operating at now. Someone who can network, who knows how to work a room, who looks like she belongs at the table. Chidi, I can learn. You can't learn what you don't have. He spun to face her. It's not about learning. It's about who you are. And who you are, Chinwe, is a simple woman, a village woman, basically. And I need more. Before Chinwe could process what was happening, the front door opened again. She turned. A tall, light-skinned woman walked in, curvy, wearing a tight red dress that left nothing to the imagination. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with confidence. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair, an expensive Brazilian weave, cascaded down her back. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Chidi, baby, you left your phone in the car. The woman stopped when she saw Chinwe. Her perfectly painted lips curved into a smile. Oh, is this her? Chinwe felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Chidi turned and smiled at the woman, a smile Chinwe hadn't seen directed at her in months, maybe years. Amara, meet my wife. He said the word wife like it tasted bitter. Chinwe, this is Amara. She's my VP of operations. He paused for a dramatic effect. And as of tonight, she's also my girlfriend. The room spun. Chinwe gripped the back of the couch for support. What? Amara walked over to Chidi and slipped her arm through his, the movement practiced and possessive. She looked at Chinwe with fake sympathy. Chidi's told me so much about you. Well, not that much. He says you mostly just stay home and what was it, baby? Oh yes, read books. Chidi laughed. Actually laughed. That's all there is to tell. Chinwe's vision blurred. Chidi, what is happening? What is this? His face went cold, hard. The mask dropped completely. What's happening, Chinwe, he said, voice flat and final, is that I'm done, Chinwe. I'm filing for divorce. You can have the settlement my lawyer sends over. It's generous. More than you deserve, honestly. Chidi, we've been married for 10 years. And for 10 years, I carried you. His voice exploded through the room. I built this company from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks while you sat at home reading your little books. You contributed nothing, Chinwe. Nothing. That's not true. Name one thing. Chidi stepped towards her, his face red with rage. Name one thing you did to help me build Okafor Dynamics. One thing. Chinwe opened her mouth, then closed it, because she couldn't tell him just yet. Chidi saw her silence and smirked. It was a cruel and triumphant expression. That's what I thought. He glanced at his expensive watch. I'm giving you 1 hour to pack your things and get out. Take whatever you want from the bedroom. The rest stays here. Chidi, this is my home. No. He cut her off with a single sharp word. This is my home. I paid for it. My name is on the deed. You were just living here, like a guest who overstayed her welcome. Amara leaned into him, running her manicured nails down his chest. Should we open another bottle, baby? Chidi smiled down at her, a smile full of warmth that used to belong to Chinwe. Absolutely. Let's celebrate properly. They walked past Chinwe towards the master bedroom like she wasn't even there, like she was furniture, like she was nothing. Chidi paused at the bedroom door and turned back. Oh, and Chinwe, don't take anything that I bought, which is basically everything. The clothes, the jewelry, the laptop, all mine. You can take your books, though, he smirked. Those are definitely yours. The door slammed. Through the thick wood, she could hear them laughing, giggling like teenagers, the champagne cork popping again. Chinwe stood alone in the living room, champagne still drying on her face and sweater, staring at the bottle on the counter. Her hands had been shaking, but now they went still. Very, very still.
She pulled out her phone with steady fingers and made a call. Her voice when she spoke was calm, professional.
Cold as ice. Hi, it's Chinwei. I need you to pull the Apex file. All of it. Every document. Every correction I made. Every piece of evidence. It's time they knew who they're really dealing with. She hung up. Then she walked to the bedroom, packed a single bag with her essentials, and left without looking back. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Because Chinwei Okafor had something better than tears. She had proof.
Let me tell you what Shidi didn't know. Let me tell you the truth that was about to destroy his entire world. Chinwei Okafor wasn't just a housewife. She had a PhD in economics from Harvard University. Not just any degree. She'd graduated at the top of her class with a dissertation on African market restructuring that had been published in 3 international journals. She'd been recruited by Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, and J.P. Morgan. She'd had offers from the World Bank and the African Development Bank. People with her credentials didn't end up as housewives by accident. She ended up there by choice. Because when she met Shidi Okafor 15 years ago, he was a struggling entrepreneur with big dreams and bigger debts. His startup, Okafor Dynamics, was bleeding money. He had passion, yes, he had charisma, but he had absolutely no idea how to run a business. His proposals were sloppy, his financial projections were laughable, his pitches were emotional appeals with no substance. Investors kept turning him down. Banks wouldn't give him loans. He was 6 months away from bankruptcy. Shidi saw something in him, though. Not his business acumen, that was non-existent, but she saw his drive, his hunger, his refusal to quit even when everyone told him not to. So she made a choice. She turned down the 6-figure offers from Wall Street. She stayed in Lagos. She married him, and she went to work. But here's the thing. She did it in secret. Because Shidi's ego couldn't handle the idea of his wife being smarter than him, so Shidi became invisible. Every night, Shidi would come home at 2 a.m., defeated and exhausted, and collapse on the couch. He'd leave his laptop open with whatever proposal he'd been working on, usually a disaster of numbers that didn't add up and arguments that made no sense. And every night, Shidi would stay up until 5 a.m. rewriting everything. She'd fix his financial projections. She'd restructure his arguments. She'd find the flaws in his logic and correct them. She'd turn his passionate but chaotic pitches into professional, compelling proposals that actually made sense. Then she'd email the corrected files to his work account before he woke up. And when Shidi opened his laptop in the morning, he'd find the polished version in his inbox. "Did I write this?" he'd say, scrolling through the professional document with confusion. "You must have," Shidi would say, smiling. "You were working so late, you probably finished it and forgot." And Shidi believed her. Every single time. For 10 years, this went on. For 10 years, Shidi was the invisible architect behind every major deal Okafor Dynamics closed. That first major contract with a telecommunications company, Shidi restructured the entire proposal. The government infrastructure deal that put them on the map, Shidi found a legal loophole that made it possible. The tech partnership with the Chinese investors, Shidi spent 3 months learning Mandarin and Chinese business culture to make sure the negotiations went smoothly. Every success Shidi celebrated, every victory he claimed, every time he told people, "I built this from nothing," Shidi was there in the shadows, making sure he didn't fail. But that wasn't even the biggest secret. 5 years ago, Shidi started feeling restless. She loved her husband, or at least she had loved who he used to be before success made him cruel. But she needed more. She needed to use her brain for something besides fixing his mistakes. So she started freelancing, quietly, secretly. But she couldn't use her real name. Shidi would have been humiliated if anyone in his business circles knew his wife was working. So she created an alias. A.R. Knight, Alexandra Rose Knight, her maiden name. She started small, vetting contracts for medium-sized companies, doing financial audits, analyzing market trends. But word spread fast in the consulting world. A.R. Knight was thorough. A.R. Knight was brilliant. A.R. Knight never missed a mistake. Within 2 years, she was one of the most sought-after business consultants in Nigeria. She worked completely remotely. No one ever saw her face. She communicated entirely through email and encrypted calls. She was a ghost, but a ghost who could make or break billion naira deals with a single report. She charged 40 million naira per project, sometimes more for complex mergers, and she was worth it.
Because when A.R. Knight signed off on a deal, investors trusted it, banks approved it, boards moved forward with confidence. And 6 months ago, when Apex Capital, one of the biggest investment firms in West Africa, wanted to merge with Okafor Dynamics in a $100 billion deal, they did what every smart company does. They hired A.R. Knight to vet it. They hired Sheeny to vet her own husband, and she did, professionally, thoroughly, objectively. She reviewed every document Sheedy submitted. She analyzed every financial projection. She audited every claim he made about the company's value and potential. And just like always, she found mistakes, lots of them. Miscalculated profit margins, inflated growth projections, inconsistent data across different reports. His proposal would have been rejected within a week if Sheeny hadn't fixed it. So she did what she'd been doing for 10 years. She fixed everything. She rewrote sections, she corrected numbers, she made Sheedy look competent. She made the deal go through. Because despite everything, she still loved him. Or maybe she just loved the memory of who he used to be before success made him cruel. But while she was fixing his proposal, she found something else. Something that made her blood run cold. Sheedy had been stealing. Not from Apex Capital, from his own company. He'd been siphoning money from the merger preparation budget, money that was supposed to go to legal fees, consultant payments, and due diligence, and using it for personal expenses. A Mercedes-Benz GLE worth 32 million naira purchased for Amara Nwakanangbo, VP of Operations. A Cartier love bracelet worth 10 million naira, also for Amara. 5 luxury stays at the Burj Al Arab in Dubai, 1 million naira per night, total 5 million naira. Room registered to Mr. and Mrs. Sheedy Okafor, except Sheeny had never been to Dubai. Sheeny sat in her home office, the small room Sheedy mockingly called her library, staring at the evidence on her screen. Her husband wasn't just leaving her for another woman. He'd been with that woman for months, maybe longer. And he'd been using company money, money from a deal she had saved, to fund his affair. Sheeny could have reported him immediately, could have sent the evidence to Apex Capital and watched the deal collapse and Sheedy's career implode. But she didn't, because she had a better plan. She documented everything, every transaction, every receipt, every hotel booking, every luxury purchase. She created a file, a detailed, undeniable, legally airtight file that proved exactly what Sheedy had been doing. And then she waited. She approved the deal, let Sheedy have his victory, let him think he was untouchable. Because Sheeny knew something that Sheedy had forgotten. The deal wasn't final until A.R. Knight gave final approval. The contract had a clause, standard in all major mergers, that allowed the consultant to revoke approval within 30 days if new information came to light. And boy, was new information about to come to light. So when Sheedy threw champagne in her face and told her to get out, Sheeny didn't fight. She packed her bag, she left the penthouse, she checked into a hotel, and she made a phone call. "Hi, it's Sheeny. I need you to pull the Apex file, all of it. It's time they knew who they're really dealing with." Then she opened her laptop and started preparing for the meeting that would end Sheedy's career.
Apex Capital Headquarters, Victoria Island, Lagos, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The building was a testament to wealth and power, 30 stories of gleaming glass and steel overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The lobby alone probably cost more than most people would earn in a lifetime. Sheedy Okafor walked through the revolving doors with Amara on his arm, feeling like a king. He was wearing a new suit, Italian, custom-made, 2.5 million naira. His shoes were handcrafted leather from London. His watch caught the afternoon sun coming through the windows. Amara looked like she'd stepped off a runway, designer everything. Her dress alone probably cost 500,000 naira. "This is it, baby," she whispered as they walked toward the elevators. "After today, you're untouchable. They'll probably put your face on the cover of every business magazine in Africa." Sheedy grinned. "They better use my good side." They laughed together as the elevator whisked them up to the executive floor. When the doors opened, a receptionist in a crisp suit greeted them. "Mr. Okafor, Mr. Adedemi is expecting you. Conference room A. Follow me, please." They walked down a hallway lined with modern art, original pieces worth millions. Everything about this place screamed success. The receptionist opened a massive mahogany door. The conference room was intimidating by design.
A table that could seat 20 people stretched the length of the room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. 7 people were already seated, executives in expensive suits, lawyers with briefcases, analysts with tablets. At the head of the table sat Tunde Adeyemi, CEO of Apex Capital. He was 60 years old, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and worth 180 billion naira. He'd built Apex from nothing 40 years ago and now controlled investment decisions across West Africa. Chidi, Tunde stood and extended his hand. His handshake was firm, confident. Good to see you again. Please, sit. Chidi and Amara took seats near the middle of the table. Chidi felt a thrill run through him. This was it. This was the moment he'd been dreaming for years. Before we make this official and pop the champagne, Tunde said as he settled back into his chair, there's one final formality. Chidi's smile faltered slightly. Formality? Our lead consultant needs to give final sign-off. Just a routine review of the terms to make sure everything is in order. Standard procedure for deals of this magnitude. Chidi relaxed immediately. Oh, of course, no problem at all. Good. Tunde leaned back, fingers steepled. I'm sure you've heard of A.R. Knight. The name hit Chidi like electricity. His eyes went wide. Knight? Repeated Chidi. The Knight? The very one. Wow. Chidi let out a nervous laugh. I mean, I've heard the name, obviously. Everyone in the industry has. They say Knight is the toughest consultant in the business, never approves a deal unless it's absolutely bulletproof. That's correct. Knight's approval is worth its weight in gold. Investors trust it completely. Chidi's chest swelled with pride. Well, Knight approved our deal, so that says everything about the quality of my proposal, doesn't it? Amara squeezed his hand under the table, beaming. Tunde checked his Rolex. Knight should be here any moment. I'll warn you, though, Knight doesn't do small talk. Very direct, very efficient. Get straight to business. I can handle direct, Chidi said confidently. I appreciate people who don't waste time. Good, Tunde nodded, because this should be quick. Just a final review, a signature, and then we celebrate. The room settled into anticipatory silence. Everyone checked their phones or shuffled papers, waiting. Then the door opened. Chidi turned, expecting to see some serious-looking man in a suit. His entire world stopped. Chinwe Okafor walked into the conference room. But she didn't look anything like the woman he'd thrown out of his house a week ago. Her hair was styled in a sleek, sophisticated cut that framed her face perfectly. She wore a tailored black power suit, the kind that cost 1 million naira easy, fitted perfectly to her frame. The white silk blouse underneath was elegant and expensive. Her heels were Italian leather, probably 300,000 naira. Her carried a leather briefcase that screamed success. But it wasn't the clothes that made Chidi's jaw drop. It was her presence. She walked into that room like she owned it, like she'd been in 1,000 rooms just like it, like she belonged at that table more than anyone there. She looked powerful, confident, dangerous. Chidi's mouth fell open. Chinwe? Amara's head whipped around so fast her neck nearly snapped. Wait, what? Chinwe didn't smile, didn't acknowledge them at all. She walked calmly to the head of the table, set her briefcase down with a soft thud, and extended her hand to Tunde. Mr. Adeyemi. Tunde stood and shook her hand warmly. Ms. Knight, thank you so much for coming. We're ready when you are.
Chidi stood up so fast, his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Hold on, what is she doing here? Chinwe, did you follow me here? Are you trying to embarrass me in front of these people? Tunde frowned, his expression darkening. Chidi, sit down. No! Chidi's face was turning red. This is my ex-wife. She's stalking me. She's been obsessed ever since I told her I wanted a divorce. Security should... Chidi! Tunde's voice cut through the room like a whip. Sit down now. Something in Tunde's tone made Chidi's protests die in his throat. He sat, but his hands were shaking with rage and confusion. Tunde looked at him with cold eyes. Chidi, I'd like you to meet A.R. Knight, the consultant who vetted your entire merger, the person whose approval made this deal possible. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Chidi blinked, once, twice. What? Chinwe opened her briefcase with calm, practiced movements. She pulled out a thick folder and slid it across the polished table. A.R. Knight, she said, her voice professional and cool. Adana Rose Knight. That was my maiden name, Chidi, before I took yours. Chidi stared at the folder like it was a bomb. That's not possible. It's all in the contract, Chinwe said, pulling out documents. Apex Capital hired me 6 months ago to perform an independent audit of Okafor Dynamics, to review your financials, analyze your projections, assess your leadership capabilities, and determine whether the merger was viable. She looked directly at him for the first time since entering the room. I reviewed everything, Chidi. Every document, every number, every claim you made. Amara leaned over and whispered urgently, Chidi, what is she talking about? You never said your wife was some kind of— Shut up, Amara, Chidi hissed. Chinwe didn't react. She simply opened the folder, completely professional. Let's start with your initial proposal, she said. The one you submitted to Mr. Adeyemi. The one you told everyone was flawless. She pulled out a document and held it up so everyone could see. This is the original draft you sent to Apex Capital 6 months ago. She pointed to specific sections. It had 22 critical errors, miscalculated profit margins on pages 7 and 12, inconsistent revenue projections between sections 3 and 8, incorrect market analysis on page 15, and, she paused for effect, 17 spelling and grammatical errors in the executive summary alone. A few executives at the table shifted uncomfortably. Chidi's face went from red to white. Chinwe pulled out another document, this one significantly cleaner. This, she continued, is the version that Apex Capital actually received, the version that got approved. Notice the difference. She slid both documents across the table. Chidi stared at them like he was looking at his own death certificate. Because he knew, deep down he knew what he was looking at. I rewrote it, Chinwe said simply, like I've been rewriting your work for 10 years. Every proposal, every pitch, every contract. I fixed your mistakes, Chidi. I made you look competent. I made you look like someone worth 200 billion naira. Tunde leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Is this true, Chidi? Chidi opened his mouth, closed it. No words came out. One of the lawyers cleared his throat. Miss Knight, are you saying that Mr. Okafor's original proposal was inadequate? I'm saying it would have been rejected immediately, Chinwe replied. The numbers didn't work, the strategy was flawed, the presentation was unprofessional. If I hadn't fixed it, this meeting wouldn't be happening. Another executive spoke up. But surely Mr. Okafor contributed something to the final proposal. Chinwe looked directly at Chidi. He contributed the idea, the passion, the vision, and I turned that into something real, something workable, something that made financial sense. She pulled out another document. But there's more. The room somehow got even quieter. While reviewing the merger preparation budget, I discovered some irregularities. Amara's eyes went wide. She knew what was coming. Over the past 6 months, 47 million naira has been diverted from the merger preparation fund, money that Apex Capital provided for legal fees, consultant payments, and due diligence, and used for personal purchases. She read from the document in her hands. A Mercedes-Benz GLE, 32 million naira, purchased for Amara Nwankwo, VP of Operations. She looked at Amara. That would be you. Amara's face went pale. A Cartier love bracelet, 10 million naira, also purchased for Miss Nwankwo. She pulled out receipts and slid them across the table. 5 luxury stays at the Burj Al Arab in Dubai, 1 million naira a night. Total cost, 5 million naira. Room registered to Mr. and Mrs. Chidi Okafor. She paused. I've never been to Dubai. Tunde's face darkened like a storm cloud. Another executive muttered, Dear God. All of these purchases, Chinwe continued, her voice never rising, never shaking, just cold and surgical, were charged to company accounts, to funds provided by Apex Capital, to money meant for this merger. She closed the folder and looked directly at Tunde. That's embezzlement, Mr. Adeyemi, and it's grounds for immediate termination of this deal. The room exploded. Chinwe, wait! Chitty stood, his voice desperate and broken. "Sit down, Mr. Okafor," Tunde said, his voice like ice. "Please, Chinwe, I can explain." Chitty's voice was cracking now, panic setting in. "There's nothing to explain," Chinwe said calmly. "The evidence is clear. You stole company funds, you lied about your capabilities, you built your success on my work while treating me like I was nothing." She turned to Tunde. "And after reviewing all of this, the fixed proposal, the embezzlement, the complete lack of integrity, I'm officially revoking my approval. This merger is too high risk. Chitty Okafor has proven he cannot be trusted with investor money. I do not recommend moving forward." Tunde nodded slowly. "Understood." "Chinwe, please!" Chitty's voice broke completely. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was wrong. Please don't do this." Chinwe looked at him. For the first time since entering the room, she allowed herself to feel, to let the hurt show just for a moment in her eyes. "You didn't make a mistake, Chitty," she said softly. "You made a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to steal. You chose to throw me away like garbage. And now," she picked up her briefcase, "now you get to live with those choices." She turned to Tunde. "My final report will be sent to your office within the hour. My consulting fee, 300 million naira as agreed. It will be wired today. Thank you, Miss Knight." Chinwe nodded professionally. Then she walked toward the door. "Chinwe!" Chitty called after her, his voice raw with desperation. She didn't turn around, didn't look back, just kept walking with her head high and her spine straight. The door closed behind her with a quiet, final click. The silence in the conference room was deafening. Then Amara stood up abruptly, grabbed her designer purse, and headed for the door. "Amara, wait!" Chitty reached for her. She jerked her arm away like his touch burned. "You're broke, Chitty. You're a fraud. You're about to be arrested. I'm done." She didn't run. She just walked calmly out, her heels clicking against the floor, not looking back once. The door closed again. Chitty collapsed into his chair, his head falling into his hands. Tunde stood, his face a mask of cold fury. "This meeting is over. My lawyers will be in contact regarding the embezzlement charges. Criminal charges will likely follow. Security will escort you out." "Mr. Adeyemi, please," one of Chitty's lawyers started. "Out." Tunde's voice left no room for argument. "Now." 2 security guards entered and stood on either side of Chitty. He stood on shaking legs, looking around the room at faces full of disgust and disappointment. As he was escorted out, he passed by the documents Chinwe had left on the table, evidence of everything he'd done, everything he'd stolen, everything he'd destroyed. His empire was gone, his reputation was destroyed, and the woman he'd thrown away like trash had done it all with a pen, a signature, and the truth. 3 months later, Okafor Dynamics collapsed spectacularly. The merger was dead. When news broke about the embezzlement and Chitty's fraud, investors ran. The stock crashed 94% in 2 weeks. Partners terminated contracts. Clients demanded refunds. The company filed for bankruptcy within a month. Chitty lost everything. The penthouse was seized by creditors. The cars were repossessed. His bank accounts were frozen while criminal investigations proceeded. He moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Aja, the kind of place he used to drive past and feel grateful he'd escaped from. He took a job as a sales manager at a mid-tier logistics company, making 250,000 naira a month, from CEO to struggling middle manager. Amara? She never called, never texted. The moment she realized he was broke, she vanished like smoke. Last anyone heard, she was dating an oil company executive in Port Harcourt. Chitty spent his nights alone in his tiny apartment, eating cheap food, staring at the walls, wondering how his life had fallen apart so completely. He'd think about Chinwe sometimes, about all the years she'd spent fixing his mistakes, about how he'd never even thanked her, about how he'd thrown her away the second he thought he didn't need her anymore. Pride, he learned, was the most expensive thing you could own. Meanwhile, Chinwe took her 300 million naira consulting fee and launched her own firm, Knight Strategy Group. She didn't hide behind an alias anymore. She used her real name, her real face, her real credentials, and the business world loved her.
Within 6 months, she had 15 Fortune 500 clients across Africa. Within a year, she'd expanded to offices in Johannesburg, Nairobi, and Accra. Her firm specialized in merger vetting, financial auditing, and corporate restructuring. She became the consultant everyone wanted and everyone feared, because when Chinwe Okafor put her name on something, it meant it was bulletproof. She was featured on the cover of Business Day. Forbes Africa named her one of the most influential women in African business. She was invited to speak at conferences across 3 continents. And she did it all using her own name. No more hiding, no more shadows. When journalists asked her how she built such a successful career so quickly, she'd smile, that quiet, knowing smile, and say, "I've been building it for 15 years. You just didn't see me doing it." One day, about a year after the divorce was finalized, Chinwe was in her corner office in Victoria Island. Glass walls, city views, success everywhere you looked, when her assistant buzzed. "Miss Okafor, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. A Mr. Chidi Okafor." Chinwe's pen paused over the contract she was reviewing. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She just felt nothing. The hurt had faded. The anger had cooled. All that remained was indifference. "Send him in," she said calmly. The door opened. Chidi walked in, and Chinwe almost didn't recognize him. He looked tired, older. His suit was off the rack, wrinkled. His shoes were scuffed. His face was gaunt, like he hadn't been sleeping or eating well. He looked like a man who'd lost everything and knew it was his own fault. "Chinwe," he said, his voice hoarse. "Thank you for seeing me." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Sit." He sat, looking small in the expensive leather chair. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Chidi spoke. "Your office is beautiful." "Thank you. I've been following your company. You're doing incredible things. Everyone says night strategy is the best in the business." "It is." More silence. "Chinwe, Chidi's voice cracked. "I came to say I'm sorry. For everything. For what I said. For what I did. For throwing you away when you were the only reason I succeeded. I was wrong. I was a fool. You were arrogant," Chinwe interrupted gently. "You confused success with your own abilities. You thought because deals were closing, it was because of you. You thought because people respected you, it was because you were special." She leaned back in her chair. "But success isn't about one person, Chidi. It's about the team behind you, the people who support you, the people who fix your mistakes when you're too proud to see them." "I know that now," Chidi whispered. "I lost everything because I didn't value the one person who actually mattered." Chinwe nodded slowly. "Yes, you did." "Is there," Chidi swallowed hard, "is there any way, could we ever—" "No." The word was final, not cruel, just true. "That door is closed, Chidi. You made sure of that when you threw champagne in my face and told me I was plain and boring and not good enough for you." "I didn't mean—" "You did." Chinwe's voice was firm. "You meant every word, because in that moment you believed them, and that's something I can't forget." Chidi nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand." He stood to leave, then paused one last time. "For what it's worth, I've learned my lesson. I'll never take anyone for granted again. I'll never think I'm better than the people who helped me." "Good. Then maybe you'll be successful again someday. Just not with me." Chidi walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "You're amazing, Chinwe. I was too stupid to see it, but you always were." "I know," she said simply. He left. Chinwe sat in her office for a moment, looking out at the Lagos skyline. Then she picked up her pen and went back to work. She had 3 merger proposals to review before the end of the day. She had clients depending on her. She had a business to run. She didn't have time to waste on ghosts from her past. The Bible says in Proverbs 16:18, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." Chidi Okafor learned that lesson the hardest way possible. He thought he was untouchable. He thought his wife was nothing. He thought he'd built his empire alone. But pride doesn't protect you. Pride exposes you. And when you throw away the person who's been holding you up, who's been fixing your mistakes, who's been the silent architect of your success, you don't just fall, you collapse. Ladies, if a man ever tells you you're just a housewife, if he calls you plain or boring, if he acts like your contributions don't matter because you don't have a fancy title, remember Chinwe's story.
because the woman he's underestimating might be the only reason he's standing. And gentlemen, if you're reading this, never forget the people who help you climb. Never take for granted the partner who supports you in the shadows, because the hand that lifts you up can also let you fall. And once you fall, you might not get back up. Success is never about one person. It's about the team, the support, the people who believe in you even when you're failing. Chinwe Okafor didn't need revenge. She didn't need to be cruel. She just needed to step into the light and let the truth speak for itself. And sometimes the truth is the most devastating weapon of all. Let us know what time it is and where you're watching from in the comments section. Subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story about karma, justice, and the power of knowing your worth. Never apologize for being underestimated. Never dim your light to make someone else comfortable. And never, ever let anyone convince you that quiet means weak, because the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous, the most prepared, the most powerful. Stay wise, stay strong, and always remember, your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. Peace.